What's up guys, it's Kayla.
And Jim.
Welcome back to another Meteorology Monday. What are we talking about today?
Today we are going to talk about Hurricane Milton, October of 2024.
Yep.
We've got a lot of stuff to go through.
Yes.
We're going to focus mostly on the hurricane side of the storm. It had a record tornado outbreak. Stay tuned for that. We're working on that as of Monday as well. But we're going to stick to the hurricane side. We're going to go through the damage it caused, its path, the impacts, all the usual things we accomplish with our hurricane case studies. But before we get started,
If you find that you're enjoying this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below so you never miss the next Meteorology Monday. If you guys watched our previous video, it was a case study on Hurricane Helene. Hurricane Milton actually took place just 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene last year in 2024. So now let's get into the meteorological setup for Milton.
on September 18th, 2024, a tropical wave emerged off the African coast and interacted with an existing wave and low-level trough west of the Cabo Verde Islands over the eastern Atlantic. As the systems merged, it resulted in a better defined tropical wave moving westward and eventually reaching the Lesser Antilles on September 26th. Although convection had increased with this system, it remained disorganized as it continued to travel westward through the eastern and central Caribbean Sea on September 27th and 28th. On September 29th, the wave reached the western Caribbean Sea and interacted with a broad trough of low pressure, the remnants of a Central American circulation that aided in the formation of Hurricane Helene in the Caribbean and Hurricane John in the eastern Pacific. By October 1st, the overall synoptic pattern formed a low-level trough which extended from the Bay of Campeche northeast into the Gulf of Mexico and interacted with a front over the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Over the next few days, remnants of Tropical Depression 11E moved northward into the southwestern Gulf and interacted with an area of mid-level rotation and a north-south oriented trough. Convection became better organized by 12Z October 5th. It developed into a new tropical depression about 155 miles east of Tampico, Mexico. Over the next 24 hours, conditions would be favorable for further development as it would slowly lift northward into an environment of light to moderate wind shear and very warm sea surface temperatures. The government of Mexico issued an initial tropical storm watch for portions of the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula at 3Z on October 6th, followed by a tropical storm warning at 15Z later that day. Tropical Storm Milton's northward progression would dramatically slow down as a new surface low developed over the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. Milton would then start moving slowly eastward along the southern edge of the mid-latitude westerlies, while steadily strengthening to hurricane status by 18Z on October 6th, about 300 miles west-northwest of Merida, Mexico. At 21Z, the Mexican government issued a hurricane watch for portions of the Yucatan Peninsula.
During the early hours of October 7th, Hurricane Milton would make a jog to the east-southeast due to the strengthening low and front to its north and northeast respectively. While on this track, Milton would experience explosive intensification and develop a small, well-defined inner core. Minimum central pressure around 325Z was measured by aircraft to be 977 millibars. At 9Z, the government of Mexico issued a hurricane warning for the same areas included in the watch just 12 hours earlier. At the same time, a hurricane watch was issued for the west coast of Florida, as well as a storm surge watch for the Florida Gulf Coast from Flamingo northward to the Suwannee River, including Charlotte Harbor and Tampa Bay. By 20Z on the 7th, the central pressure had fallen to 895 millibars, with maximum sustained winds of 155 knots or 180 miles per hour. This ties Hurricane Rita of 2005 for the fourth lowest minimum central pressure in an Atlantic hurricane on record. The only four lower central pressures were Wilma in 2005 at 882, Gilbert in 1988 at 888, and the Labor Day hurricane of 1935 at 892 millibars. At the time of peak intensity, Milton was centered about 100 miles northwest of Merida, Mexico. At 21Z, a hurricane warning and storm surge warning was issued for the west coast of Florida. At the same time, a hurricane watch was issued for the east coast of Florida, and a storm surge watch was issued for the U.S. East Coast from Sebastian Inlet, Florida, to Edisto Beach, South Carolina, including the St. Johns River in Jacksonville, Florida. During the next 12 hours, Milton would weaken as it underwent an eye wall replacement cycle. While this occurred, the center was moving eastward 40 to 50 miles north of the northwestern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Watches and warnings had been extended further south and east along the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula as it tracked farther south than the models had predicted. Although this track was very close to the coast, hurricane-force winds were confined to a small area near the eye and remained offshore, while onshore communities experienced tropical storm conditions, storm surge, and destructive waves.
On October 8th, the low over the northeastern Gulf of Mexico moved into the western Atlantic. This allowed a low to mid-level ridge to build across the northwestern Caribbean and Florida peninsula and lift the front northward into central Florida. Milton would wobble east-northeast while finishing its eye wall replacement cycle later that morning. At 12Z, portions of the Florida East Coast were upgraded to a hurricane warning. Also at 12Z, a storm surge warning was issued for the U.S. East Coast from the Volusia-Brevard County line in Florida northward to the mouth of the St. Mary's River, including the St. Johns River. At 15Z, the storm surge warning was extended southward to Port Canaveral, Florida. Between 15Z and 2205Z, Milton's maximum sustained winds would re-intensify from 125 knots, or about 140 miles per hour, to 145 knots, about 170 miles per hour. At 21Z, the storm surge warning on the U.S. East Coast was extended southward again to Sebastian Inlet, and also northward to the Altamaha Sound in Georgia. Around 06Z on October 9th, deep layer southwesterly shear developed over the eastern Gulf. This allowed Milton to accelerate northeastward, bringing the center over cooler sea surface temperatures. The combination of these two factors caused Milton to rapidly weaken. However, it would significantly expand in size as it approached the west coast of the Florida peninsula. Maximum sustained winds decreased to near 100 knots, or 115 miles per hour, still a Category 3 hurricane, by the time the center made landfall on Siesta Key, Florida, at 030Z on October 10th. As the storm approached the coastline, a sharp gradient of storm surge was felt due to its perpendicular approach. Areas north of the landfall location observed water levels below normal tide levels as winds were blowing offshore. However, south of the landfall location, storm surge of 6 to 9 feet above ground level occurred from Venice southward to Boca Grande. Isolated storm surge of 10 feet above ground level were estimated near Minnesota Key due to the winds blowing onshore. In the northern part of Charlotte Harbor and along the Peace River, maximum storm surge of 5 to 8 feet above ground level occurred. Hurricane conditions were felt along the west coast of Florida, from Clearwater Beach and Tampa southward across Sarasota and Venice. As the storm tracked inland, hurricane-force wind gusts were reported in central Florida along the center's track. Tropical storm conditions were felt elsewhere across the remainder of the Florida peninsula. The strongest reported sustained winds in this area were 60 knots, or about 70 miles per hour, at Ponce Inlet at 0906Z on October 10th. Ponce Inlet also reported a peak wind gust of 86 knots, about 100 miles per hour. Although the maximum wind speed had decreased from previous days, the wind field had significantly expanded. Tropical storm conditions stretched from the southern coast of South Carolina down to the northern Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. During the overnight hours, Milton would continue its east-northeast trajectory across Florida and emerge into the Atlantic near Cape Canaveral around 8Z later that morning. By 18Z, Milton would transition to an extratropical system about 210 miles east of Daytona Beach, Florida. As an extratropical low, Milton continued eastward and gradually was absorbed into a frontal system and dissipated around 0Z on October 12th, a few hundred miles south of Bermuda.
In summary, though Milton strengthened to a Category 5 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 155 knots or 180 miles per hour, it made landfall as a Category 3 hurricane with winds of 100 knots or 115 miles per hour. Milton's minimum central pressure was 895 millibars, which ties Hurricane Rita of 2005 for the fourth lowest minimum central pressure in an Atlantic hurricane on record. Hurricane Milton made landfall just 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene, also on the west coast of Florida, and also as a major hurricane. 15 people died as a direct result of Milton, 12 in the United States, all in Florida, and 3 in Mexico. 27 people died as an indirect result of Milton, such as occurring during storm preparations or post-storm cleanup. The National Weather Service survey crew concluded that the storm surge water was moving extremely fast, and the wave action tremendous, leading to blowout of the first floor of many structures. The NOAA National Centers for Environmental Information, or NCEI, estimated that Milton caused $34.3 billion in damages in the United States, almost exclusively in Florida. This was just 14 days after Hurricane Helene caused $78.7 billion across the southeastern United States. To complicate matters, the same area had a significant storm surge from Hurricane Helene 2 weeks prior. Erosion and debris from Helene's aftermath complicated efforts to estimate the damages from Milton. Across the Florida peninsula north of Milton's path, significant heavy rain fell. Some significant measurements were 20.4 inches at a Kokora site near St. Petersburg, 17.2 inches at a Kokora site near Ormond Beach, 14.83 inches at an NWS Cooperative Observer site near Orlando, 11.6 inches at a Kokora site near Vero Beach. Milton caused a significant tornado outbreak over the southern and central parts of the Florida peninsula on October 9th, which included 45 known tornadoes on land and a tornadic waterspout over Lake Okeechobee. These included 3 EF3 tornadoes, 6 EF2s, 25 EF1s, and 7 EF0s, with 4 tornadoes of unknown intensity. Milton is the first tropical cyclone in the Storm Prediction Center's Tropical Cyclone Tornado Database dating back to 1995 to produce more than 1 EF3 tornado. The most significant tornado was an EF3 that killed 6 people near Fort Pierce in Vero Beach. There were 14 known injuries associated with the tornadoes. There was an 80-knot gust at the North Palm Beach County Airport, which occurred as a tornado passed by during the afternoon of October 9th. The hurricane ripped the fabric roof off the Tropicana Field Stadium in St. Petersburg. So that was quite a lot that was going on with Hurricane Milton.
That's right. There was a number of things there that we can talk about. Some of the things that stood out to me was the rapid intensification.
Yes.
And then how weather components came together to weaken it. Fortunately, weaken it before it made landfall. Storm surge was incredible.
Yeah, because of the way it came in.
Yep, and it hitting areas that were impacted by Helene 2 weeks before. That to me is probably one of the big ones. As we were reading the report from the National Weather Service on Hurricane Milton, it's like, wow, just experiencing Hurricane Helene, and then the debris is still there. They haven't even cleaned up yet, and here comes Milton coming right across. That was just incredible. Yeah,
even to the fact where a lot of the numbers from Milton are skewed because they weren't able to survey it correctly as they were still cleaning up from Hurricane Helene. It was hard to distinguish what was already there from Helene and what was new damage caused by Milton.
That's right. And again, another heavy rainfall producing storm. Again, it wasn't a giant swath of rain like we saw with Helene, but very, very heavy rain, 20 plus inches in certain locations. The wind field from South Carolina to the Yucatan Peninsula.
Very large.
That is incredible. If you look at a map and you see South Carolina all the way down to the Yucatan Peninsula, that is a very large area of tropical storm, tropical cyclone wind speeds. Incredible.
And the fourth lowest minimum pressure in an Atlantic hurricane on record, tying Rita in 2005. Just insane that a hurricane would reach into the 800 millibars. That doesn't happen very often, as you saw in the statistics that we posted. And for it to undergo the rapid intensification that it did, pretty much going from the remnants of a tropical depression that was already there, merging with something else to become its own tropical depression, into Tropical Storm Milton, into a hurricane, all happened very, very quickly, I believe within 24 hours, and then expanding from that into a Category 5 hurricane, and then luckily hitting those colder ocean temperatures and chilling out to a Category 3 hurricane, which is still a significant one, before making landfall.
And the flip side of the coin to that is the tornado, the
Yes.
tornadic outbreak that occurred with this. Incredible. And
Yeah.
dating back to when they started keeping records for tornadoes, going back to 1995, EF3, I mean, an EF3 tornado with a hurricane, I mean,
Almost
that's almost unheard of.
Yeah.
You know, EF2, EF3,
And
that's
there were
incredible.
multiple with Milton.
That's right.
All having to do with the way that Florida is set up this way. If you have a hurricane coming perpendicular like Milton did, it just sets up those bands to land almost perfectly. You also have the frontal systems and other synoptic scale things going on as well that helps contribute to it. So you had a major hurricane landfalling on the west coast of Florida, but you had a pretty significant tornado outbreak in central and eastern Florida as well.
We actually went down for a cruise
We did.
out of Miami.
The next
like,
day.
Literally the next day
day.
we were driving through.
Yeah.
And so took some pictures on
We did.
I-95
Yes.
of some of the trees and billboard damage
Yeah.
that we could take on our way down to Miami, and maybe possibly on our way back too, coming back home.
So there you have it, Hurricane Milton, October 2024. Again, if you like what you saw, be sure to leave a like, subscribe down below so you never miss the next one. Really helps us out if you hit that subscribe button. Lets us know that you like the type of videos by pressing the thumbs up. If you want to support the channel further, we do have a Patreon page, which will be linked down in the description box. Also down there, you will find the link to our website as well as our social media. Follow us over on Instagram and Facebook. It's always a fun time over there.
And guys, we are trying to get to 10,000 subs by the end of the year. Please help us get to that important milestone. We are about 7,400, 7,500 people so far. Thank you so much for everyone that has subscribed and is willing
And
to
is still
sit
watching us.
and watch us. We are so thankful. And for those that aren't subscribed and you're still willing to sit down and watch us, we thank you very much. We love it. We love everyone's feedback. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It helps our channel, and we want to get to that 10,000 mark later this year.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, we can do it tomorrow. If 3,000 of you decide right now that watching our faces on a Monday is worth your time, we'll throw in a set of Ginsu knives.
Well, not really.
Okay. Until next time, I'm Kayla.
And I'm Jim.
Thanks for watching.
And we'll see you at the next Meteorology Monday. All right, we out. Peace.